And to me, well, I'll start now. You guys have really stepped out, and you were one of the actual first that I became aware of on the internet, um, to em, embrace indie artists where they don't have too many real homes, and you've opened your door essentially to say, hey, you want help, come here, I'll help you. And you do follow through, and I think it's remarkable the job that you both do. And you has been doing this plus, man, taking care of your mother, who I'm a huge fan of. Carrie, every Sunday I wait to see what recipe she has out on the web, what cake she has on there or whatever. So I'm a huge fan, and I'm still probably stuck in the 80s, so it's all right.
That
You
was a good
know,
time.
yeah, uh, that's that was real band music, none of this computer generated stuff. When you go to the jam sessions and you hear the hard hat, the snare, it's it makes you feel that much better. You know, AI has taken over. Ricardo and I have a young lady that we both love and admire that puts out a lot of music, and it took us a few months to realize, hey, this is AI music. Now, she's opened up about it, and she'll say, well, all the lyrics are mine. Most of the voices are mine, but I type in what I want and it comes out.
The
And
prompts.
yeah, she's
You know
act
what? I have spoken to a lot of independent artists that either feel so strongly against it, and I guess I did too until I was working with an artist. And most independent artists don't have a budget to go into a studio and hire out session people and everything else. And this artist I was working with, I told her to write some songs, and in 2 days, she wrote a whole 12 album, 12 singles, and all of them were as great as the next. So she said, now what? I said, well, you either put a budget together to go into a studio, or you got to think of other ways of doing it. Now, first of all, the whole song, every song was written either together, or she'd send me a verse, I'd send her a chorus, vice versa. And it worked out great. But there were times when I wanted to put strings of an orchestra behind us. And even, you were mentioning Sly and the Family Stone. I heard horns in it, like Sly and Chicago. The band Chicago used to have.
Yes.
So I needed a sax player, a trumpet player, a trombone player. Where am I going to find that? So I had her find sounds on the computer, and we actually did the parts. I would sing it to her on the phone, bum 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 bum, like that, and she'd find the keys in her keyboard, and it would come out like a trumpet or any horn thing. And normally we'd have to do without it, and not to have money in this day and age. I've learned many years ago, because I was afraid of the computer when it first came out. I was already at the back end of my career, and I figured, the persons that worked with me or whatever at Universal, at EMI, wherever I worked, they were always always computers around, but like I shied away from it because I didn't want to know it. Well, little did I know that I'd have to start knowing it to respond to emails, and people wanted answers quick and everything. You know, it's like I had to learn it, and I fought it and fought it. And the same with this whole AI thing. You know, it's like, do you fight it or do you embrace it? Not to rip everything off. Like I saw this guy was in prison for a while for coming up with an artist that never existed, and all the music, all the lyrics, everything else was AI. That I think crosses the line big time.
Yeah.
You know, I think like anything and everything, there's got to be certain lines that can't be crossed. And I think, you know, plagiarism and copyright infringement or anything like that is horrible.
And that's exactly what it's doing, is taking sample sets from all of the music that we've ever created. So, I mean, like what Timberland, was with Sono, and they were doing this, and he had these artists believing that they were gonna be the next whatever, next Timberland, and then the thing comes out with a almost the exact same song as one of the artists that he submitted, because all it's doing is taking pieces of this and pieces of that. So it sounds human because they're just actually sampling, if you want to use that word, a part of our soul, and it's just getting better by the day and the day and the day. So I think Heston and I have made for the indie hookup, the song could be no more than 50% AI created. If you're a singer and maybe you need the background or whatever,
I think that's
okay,
fair. I think that's
yeah,
a real fair, like I said, there's perimeters and boundaries that you shouldn't be crossing over. And I think a 50% thing is really fair, maybe too fair, but you just got to know that the technology is out there. People are going to use it. And like I was saying about the computers earlier, I shied away from it. But then I started working with this artist, and we needed stuff desperately, or the song wouldn't sound complete. So we made our own horn sounds and everything else from a MIDI keys, and you know, it's I'm
yeah.
not.
You still playing the parts though. Yeah. See, I'm a MIDI guitar. I'm a guitarist, but I use MIDI guitar. So my main instrument is guitar, and I can't play certain things on the keyboard, but I'll play it on my guitar, and it translated over to, a Rhodes sound or whatever, a horn sound, So people might even say that was, oh, you should have real horns. That's sacrilege or whatever. Or you're using the drum machine. It's also every stage of technology, there's always some pushback or whatever. But I think this is an extreme. This is some sci-fi stuff that we're actually living in real time. We're seeing happening. You know, I mean, they're gonna have robots dressed up like the Rolling Stones in a minute, and they're gonna be out on stage. you know.
Nah, if it's the Rolling Stones, they're going to go on forever. You know,
Mhm.
they're just timeless. They will go on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask
So,
you guys a question since we're talking about this.
uh-huh.
Would you guys have considered Run DMC ripoffs of Aerosmith with Walk This Way?
It's
Ooh.
like, yeah, it's like doing a cover. Sampling was, I mean, as a real musician, I came in right on that thing. So sampling was looked down on to an extent, but then I got started to appreciate it because back then they had to dig in the crates, and they had to really put it, they had to match tempos and truncate and do all this stuff. And so I kind of got to the point where I respected a little bit more. And I mean, we might throw in 20 samples in a song, but still we still play parts. So I don't know. It's like I said, every time when that technology comes out, there's some pushback from so-called real musicians or whatever. Like even when tape came out, 2-inch tape, they were saying, oh, They wasn't played live in the room back in my day. We all had to gather in the room. We had to learn the charts and we had to do this. Now you got one guy or two guys, doing everything. So I just think this is just an extreme version of there's no humans involved as some of the stuff. I mean, because the artist that he's talking about, it was a Jamaican guy singing. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is that the artist? What's his name? And it was just her name as
Yeah.
the artist. So I'm like, what? Is she the producer? What's going on here? I mean, the things it's just too good now. I could tell at first because it's something that it's like a phase that's happening in the recording, and the average person can't hear it, but I can hear it. Doesn't It's synthetic sounding. But now they're getting to the point where that's disappearing, and I'm searching for music for my other show, Love Vibes, and I'm looking for new music, and I'm coming across these AI stuff that is like I can't really tell the difference. I have to go to the description and see it says AI synthetically produced music or something like whatever the phrase that at least YouTube is doing that now. They're detecting it and they're putting a warning on it. So there may be a pushback where real music. We're going to protest. We're going to boycott anything that's not real singers and real artists and stuff. And then what the record company's doing, it's even worse because they want to take Jeff P's music and they want to say, you signed this. We remember we said you signed this. It says your likeness, Jeff. So we're
Yeah,
gonna say produced by synthetic Jeff.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and now they exploiting you without a check.
I honestly believe that record companies have seen their better days, and the next great big thing is going to come from the independent artist world. They're just going to
Oh,
blow it up, and because there's nothing happening new, refreshing, different in record companies, you got to fit the certain mold. You got to be a certain age. You got to have a certain amount of followers and things like that all matter, and it shouldn't. It should be, in my opinion, about the music. I don't care how old the person is. I don't care what they look like. It's like, let me hear the song. And if it's a great song, I really don't care who the person is. I truly, unless it's, a Charles Manson or something like that. It's like who recorded actually with one of the Beach Boys. They did a
Wow,
Charles Manson song. So
wow.
it was,
Has
you
we
know,
still wait? I haven't seen the young lady
no,
coming.
no, she's. I forgot to tell you, she's sick.
Oh, my bad. All right. So I did good thing I started recording. So we'll just continue on. So
Um, Jeff, let's get into your artist. Now you know I'm familiar with Carla Lynette, and I love to explain how I met her. You know, we started this due to my journey in meeting artists sharing my mom's music. We got a bad record deal. I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I just knew my mom's music sounded good, and in 6 months we had recouped all the money and showed a profit. So I got really excited, and then the next semester came out, and it was pennies, well, pixie dust on the dollar,
yeah,
and just couldn't understand. And people were still calling me, telling me how they loved my mom's music, and the record label stopped promoting her. And I'm like, why? And he made a good point. He said, "Man, come on, man. Your mom is 78 years old. She's not going to be performing We have other artists in line that we need to move. Your mom had a great run. And that's around the time where I met Ricardo and his partner, K.E. Durham. That's together, they're Black Nova. He produced my mom's video, and I saw him just learning how to turn the board on, and him calling Ricardo, asking Ricardo all kind of questions. And I'm like, wow, this guy is good. He's not even here. And he's telling him what color the button is, and he's telling him what to do. So out of that, it became a video. My mom had new music. Um, I said, you know what? I could do this. So I just started sharing her music. And in turn, people start sharing their music with me. And I met a lot of artists, a lot of friends, and I started submitting my mom's music to different radio stations. I learned how to do that. So I had a few other artists that I knew or grew up with in Oakland. I got a good friend, a reggae artist that's performed with the Wailers and all. Frankie Paul used to be at his house all the time. Um, I told him, I say, I'm going to learn this and I'm going to share your music. So I started sharing his music. And in turn, I started sharing Ricardo and Black Nova's music and a whole bunch of artists. So Ricardo came to me and said, let's put a show together. And I'm like, okay. So we got we have a mutual friend, the one I want you to interview with next, Sabrina. Just Chat with Bree, KYBN Radio. I befriended her, through my endeavors with my mom. She said, yeah, I'll get you guys on here. So we got on KYBN Radio. And I said, you know what? I can submit the show to the radio stations I submit music to. So we've been picking them up one by one by one. One actually started 17 minutes ago. The newest station. Um, so we're really helping out the artists. So that now going back to Carla, it was a guy we had met. Now Ricardo might start laughing on this. Uh, his name, I'm gonna say his name, Courtney Burgess, the king of scammers. Jeff, this guy ran through our group and he got over $15,000 in false promises and fake promotion.
Heston,
Um,
I just got to just say one thing. I think that is the reason. Well, I got involved in the whole indie world because my closest personal friend in this entire world is 86 years old. And COVID hit. And he is in a country band called the Oak Ridge Boys. He's William Lee Golden, the guy with the real long beard and the real long hair. I'd love, Heston, for you to have a conversation with him because the way you both talk, how you speak, and how William has that, William Lee Golden. I would love to watch you both have a conversation.
We'd be there all day. We'd be there years.
It would turn into a Grateful Dead drum solo.
I apologize for that.
No, man, don't because it's your style, it's your thing. When I first started listening to you, I said, this guy, and I wrote to you even this on a DM or something because I went back and saw it the other day. I said, Heston, you're aiming to be the Byron Allen of this whole internet music thing that you're doing. And you, Ricardo, are part of that whole Byron Allen empire, what this man has done with television and things like that.
Yeah.
I think you guys are on the cusp of becoming that on the internet. And the internet, although I was frightened of it, and I really would use it, just send emails and everything else. Well, we started, William couldn't go out on tour with the Oak Ridge Boys, so William Lee Golden decides he's going to go and make a gospel record, because go back to his southern roots with all traditional cover songs of old gospel songs that he grew up singing with his sister and down in Bruton, Alabama. And he just called me up right in March of when COVID first hit. And he says, Jeffrey, this is William Lee Gold.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I know who it is because it says his name when it's ringing there. So he doesn't have to tell me who it is by now. And like I said, we've been best friends for 45 years. He says, is it possible for you to come to the studio tomorrow? I think I'm going to start recording with my sons and making this gospel record. And this has always been a vision of his, was to make music, family music, if you will. And he comes from a 3 generations of musicians that are part of William Lee Golden and the Goldens. It was his son Rusty, who passed away almost a year ago, unfortunately, with a heart attack. But his son Chris is in the band. His grandchildren, Elijah's in the band. His granddaughter, Elizabeth, who plays the fiddle and sing, is in the band. So it's a real family harmony type of thing. And he wanted me the next day to go and shoot him in Nashville. Well, at that point, we were all locked down. We couldn't leave our houses. Nobody wanted even, you couldn't even answer the door. Or if you got food delivered, you had to clean the bags off and everything first. So the last place I was going is on an airplane, especially at 10 o'clock at night, and they're starting to record at 9 o'clock in Nashville the next morning. So the first thing I said was, William, thanks for giving me a little heads up, but I can't get on a plane or anything like that. He says, well, how do you think we can work this out? And I said to him, give me the name. Did you hire any crews or anything for this yet? He said, yeah, he hired some camera guys and all. I said, give me their names. So I got the guy on the phone at 10 o'clock at night. It must have been 11 by that time. And I said, dude, listen, William has hired you. He's going to be singing. You guys are going to be bumping into each other and, basically just making a wreck out of the whole session. I said, why don't you do me a favor? Do each of you have Apple cameras? They said, yeah. I said, great. I want you to put your Apple camera on top of your shooting camera and frame the Apple camera in the way that you're seeing it out of your lens, or close enough for me to see it. And lo and behold, we shot 5 songs that day. And
Wow.
yeah, it was just, we came up real lucky, and on the fly I was able to see each cameraman's what they were shooting live, and I had 3 phones up to my face talking to the 3 different camera people, and it was great. And as it worked out, without me even having to go to Nashville for this group, William Lee Golden and the Goldens, in like 5 days we shot 24 videos.
Wow.
Yeah, I told them it was like the old Max Roach, Little Rascals approach. You shoot this way. All right, take your shirts off. We're going to move the camera this way. We're going to do another song. We'll go inside that way. And like an hour and a half for each video, we were turning them out. So that was my first taste of like doing independent videos and learning how to become really, really resourceful. And
We don't have time for you to go through your entire career because it's so fast and so
Uh,
wonderful. But
no, but
can
go
you tell
ahead.
us how you got started and how you even got into this thing? Like what your journey? Because you know, people know which everything your work, but they didn't maybe not know that you were behind it. You know, can you tell us how you got started and kind of up to where you are now?
I got started in television news in 1976. There was conventions going on with, I think it was Jimmy Carter in Madison Square Garden, and I'm just trying to think. It was a, it could have been Ronald Reagan. I'm not really sure who the Republican nominee was, but I was in Kemper Arena in Kansas City, and I was basically a production assistant. And I worked my way up in ABC News. That 2 years later, they started a brand new magazine, news magazine show, and it was going to be in the same format as 60 Minutes, and it was called 2020, which is still
mm-hmm.
on the air today.
Yeah.
And I was in the right place at the right time. I was still a production assistant trying to fight my way up the corporate ladder. And after about a year and a half of the show, all we were was being compared to a second rate 60 Minutes. So at that particular time, everybody was invited once a week to these weekly meetings of coming up with story ideas or something. And I remember somebody saying we weren't allowed to sit at the producer's big table. We had to sit, in the back of the room on the floor and everything, taking notes and all. And somebody said, "Hey, you ever hear this band, the Doobie Brothers? They're up for 4 Grammy Awards this year." I think it was 1978 or something like that. Maybe 1979. Anyway, one of the other girl producers, I remember a woman saying, "Are they actually related?" And I busted out laughing because if you know the Doobie Brothers, there was one black dude, Tyrone Porter, who was a great bass player. Great, great, great bass player. And I started laughing because that was like one of my favorite bands in the 70s with, that rock and roll um, music that they made, from Listen to the Music, Long Train Running, China Grove, all these great tunes and everything. So I was a huge fan of theirs. So when I started laughing at this meeting, everybody turned and like looked at me and they said, "What's so funny?" And I said, "No, they're not related and everything." And I told them the story of the Doobie Brothers, how they started, and basically how their um, lead singer, Tommy Johnston, basically burnt himself out on the road and everything else. And within 2 or 3 days, they had found Michael McDonald from Steely Dan, and Michael came in and gave it that, from that hard, edgy rock and roll to this polished R&B smooth sound of his voice. And it all was happening at around the same time. And this was Michael's first album that he was shining on. It was Minute by Minute, What a Fool Believes. I think they were up for 4 Grammy Awards. And so 2020 decided, all right, we're going to do our first music story on this band, the Doobie Brothers. I left the meeting. Nothing else was said. 2 nights later, at like 2 o'clock in the morning, there's Geraldo Rivera, one of the original correspondents for 2020. He says, "Hey, Jeff, how would you like to produce your first piece?" I said, "On 2020?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Will they let me?" He said, "Yeah, I'll work it out for you. Don't worry about it. But like, let's try to work together on this story." And we did the story. It aired on July 3rd, 1980. I still have the clapperboard behind me. And I mean, all of a sudden, it was the first time, or one of the first times, that the show that's been on the air for 2.5 years got in the top 10 of the Nielsen ratings. So all of a sudden, this little kid one day became a grown man the next day. And that was the beginning of me getting into music and television. I went from doing over a couple of years worth of great music stories that from everybody from the Rolling Stones to Paul McCartney to The Who to the Jefferson Airplane, the Grateful Dead, the Kinks, just a lot of different bands that I always dreamed to work with, and I finally had an outlet to work on these things and have 40 million people watching it at the same time.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen anymore because this was pre MTV and pre cable.
Right.
Yeah.
So from 2020, they sort of started slowing down on the music stories, and I was so into it. It was like a dream come true. And they offered me a job to run the entertainment division on the West Coast for CNN, which was news, but music news, which was pretty trippy. And then all of a sudden, there was a man named Charles Koppelman who started a new label called SBK, which became part of EMI Records. And he calls me up at CNN and he says, "I got an idea. How about if you change professions and leave television and go into the music business?"
Wow.
I said, "Charles, I don't know anything about the music business." And Charles was this real character, he just passed away a year or two ago, but he was a one of a kind, as they call in my tribe, a mensch. And he said, "Well, I don't know anything about the music business either," even though he had one of the biggest independent publishing companies in the world at the time. He didn't have a label or anything. So he said, "We'll learn it together." So he put me head of music videos. And I started working with artists like Wilson Phillips, Slaughter, Pat Benatar, Arrested Development.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Arrested Development was a real trip because they weren't giving money to rap artists at that time. A big budget rap video was $15,000. So I'm talking to this guy Speech and this other gentleman that I worked with in New York, and they said, "Hey, you got to make it work." So I listened to that song, Tennessee, and I don't know if your audience is familiar with it, but there's a woman named Dion Ferris who had this wailing part in the middle of the song. And I just envisioned a crane rising as she just started wailing her sound. So I had to call New York the day before the shoot and beg for $1,000 to get a crane. Now you could do it for $100 by getting a drone. But at that time, it was $1,000 to get a crane. And they got it. And the video was real successful. It broke the band. So I got a really great start doing music videos at a time when it really mattered, at a time that really it could make or break artists, you know, in the 80s when MTV first started. Artists that you never heard of before became, you know, household names because they were on MTV. So after spending my time at EMI, I got another call from a guy who I worked with at EMI, Daniel Glass, who was starting with a guy by the name of Doug Morris, this new boutique label called Rising Tide. And every label that starts off, they always say this is going to be a boutique label because they don't want to freak people out, you know. So we were only going to have a couple of bands, and I figured I can handle that, you know, doing just a couple of videos here or there. You know, I'm not a machine or nothing else.
Mm.
Well, 2 months after Rising Tide started, they were bought by Edgar Brofman, who had um, the alcohol. I don't drink, so I don't even remember what it was, but he ended up buying the whole Universal Records, Universal Films, Universal Television.
Wow.
So we became Universal Records in 2 months, and that little boutique label had about 50 artists after its first year of being around. And it just grew into something like I never saw before. It was an amazing group of artists. I mean, I started to do rap with them with a Queens, New York group called the Lost Boys and Mr. Cheeks, if I remember correctly. And that was my start there, but it segued into, besides doing pop and rock, I also did hip hop and rap and everything else. And I met these guys, these two brothers from New Orleans, Louisiana, Ronald and Brian Williams, who had a pretty much a Southeast label called Cash Money Records.
Mm.
And
Wow.
I became they're still to this day, both of them, especially Slim, Ronald Williams, like a brother to me. Um, because when you take a label that's pretty small and regionally known and everything, and in 2 years turn them into an international phenomenon, that's pretty amazing. You know, that's really cool.
This sounds like a Netflix documentary. You need to pitch this to them, man. This is you like the Forrest Gump of music. You were at the beginning of everything. It's like all this connections, all these, you
And
know.
back in EMI, when that started, I was working with Billy Idol, Pat Benatar,
Wow.
Slaughter, all these different groups that were making big names on MTV and everything. And then Universal just got like so out of hand that I ended up after a decade at Universal just working with Cash Money for the next 15 years. And I started working with Lil Wayne when he was Lil Wayne. I'm looking at a picture of him right now. He was 13 years old. And he used to sit at the on director's chairs watching the monitors with me, asking me questions all the time, this little kid. But he'd always call me Mr. Panzer. He was always very polite, very respectful. Everybody down there was. It was just like nothing I've ever experienced before. These are these, basically, they came from the hood. You know, it was survival of the fittest. And I went down there, and myself and Mark Glassfeld, the director of Juvenile's Ha, was the thing that actually first put them on the map. But then there shortly thereafter, Juvenile did Back That Ass Up. And I think, that blew the doors wide open. And if we're going to talk about the Cash Money music, I got to give a shout out to Manny Fresh, the guy behind the music that made the beats, that is so gifted to this day. I just saw him recently, and it was like seeing, a person that I hadn't seen in a decade and a half. And we just picked up the conversation where we last left it. And that's like a life-changing experience, that whole Cash Money segment of my life, because there wasn't anything ever like that. And it just blew up into something that nobody, in fact, their first meeting in New York, they would have managers, artists coming into these executive meetings every week. And every week you'd hear the same schmeal that this is going to be the best music in the world that you ever hear. It's popping, it's great, it's, crazy, it's well, the week I was in New York was the same week that Brian and Ronald Williams came up to pitch Cash Money. Now, I'd already met them and everything else before the actual label met them, because we just started talking and discussing the ideas of doing videos. And they're about to walk in to this group of executives, all at Universal Records. And I just stood up and I said, listen, I know everybody has their own deal here. There's marketing, there's A&R, there's promotion, there's videos, there's everything. But this label is self-contained. They got it all. You're never going to see it. It's not just one artist, Juvenile, as everybody thought it was. I said there's like 4 different groups, the Hot Boys, the Big Timers on here. I said, if I was you guys in this room right now, I pay real close attention to what these brothers are about to tell you, because this could make our label like stand out overnight. And sure enough, the words came true. I just believed in them, because Manny had a way of incorporating even classical music. If you listen to the beginning of Back That Ass Up, there's classical violins and cellos and everything else being played in that. Nobody did that in hip hop. Maybe Coolio did with Gangster's Paradise or something, but it was very rare. And what made their sound different, it had that bouncy sound to it.
Mhm.
All I could say is, how that chorus used to go up and down the low riders and all. Well, Manny just put beats to the actions of the cars,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
Uh,
Uh,
How
I
did you how did you get started uh producing individual independent artists?
I started with my friend William Lee Golden and the Goldens, and I ended up managing them for a while. So I got to learn about the independent business, and we were talking earlier about sharks taking advantage of artists. I see it every day. I have, people write to me asking me, I'd love to hear your songs or anything. And I said, I don't sing, but who those people are. And then I started talking to a couple of independent artists on DMs. And then after William, there was an artist from Australia who I worked with very closely. And then ultimately, I started working with 3 artists in particular. One is a girl, Carla Lynette from Wales, over near the UK, who's a phenomenal singer, has a great pitch, and she just needed some guidance, like all these other independent artists really do need. They don't need anybody to take their money. they need advice. They need to be shown what to do, how to do it, how to go out and promote yourself. And I think what I basically do is give them, record label 101. We do media training, where I interview them for days. Any possible thing that I may know or don't know, I'll ask them. And besides Carla, I work with this alternative genius out of Chicago, a gentleman by the name of Bad Bubble, who's into this heavy synth type of sound that, to show you what kind of artist this dude is, he sends me a song one morning, and I could have sworn it was John Lennon playing the keyboards.
Wow.
Blew me away as a huge Beatle fan. So I said, wow, you got any more music you can send me? That night, he sends me another song. I swear to God, I thought it was a joke he was playing on me, but the second song sounded like Yoko Ono.
Hmm.
So I said to Bad Bubble, I said, dude, did you do both these, or are you like trying to see if I'm listening to the music or not? He says, no, man, that's my range. So I figured this guy either is a top rate talent and or he was crazy.
Right.
And I found out he's both, but in a crazy in a great way. I said you shouldn't be called Bad Bubble. You should be called Great Bubble because your music is so great, it's so eclectic, it's so out there that it makes it palatable to everybody. So I've worked with him now for a couple of months, and he is just terrific artist to work with. Every morning he wants a list of things to do, and he gets them all done with check marks. He sends me back. And the music that he had, by the time we started getting, I followed him, I think, for about 2 years on social media. And then I just wrote him a DM just saying, you're really, really talented. And I don't say that often to too many people, but you've got a talent that just is in some other stratosphere. And we just started talking, we clicked. And the next thing you know, we're making music and videos together. And I'm trying to teach all these independent artists that, with this thing that I was so afraid of, not the telephone, but the computer part, um, has a telephone in it. And with that, or has a camera in it in the telephone, and the quality is so great these days. You go out and shoot your own videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said to them, all you need is tight, medium, and wide shots and get some slow motion stuff and this and that, and I'll teach you how to put it together. And that's what Carla did on her first project. But her first project also was helped out by a girl who I work very closely with. Her name is Angel Wings, that sort of does all these post production effects and everything else on Carla's first video, Wait a Minute. And she also worked closely with Bad Bubble. But all of a sudden, like 3 weeks ago, I get a call from a friend of mine, Steve Leeds, who worked with me at Universal Records. I was head of production, video production. He was head of video promotion. So I'd always tell him that I make the pizza, you deliver it. And that's how we worked, essentially. And he told me about this girl, and her name is Stella Soleil. And
I was just about to ask you about her.
I worked with her a while back. And to show you how this whole business has changed so radically, her first video was done by Hype Williams. Williams. Anybody that knows anything about music video has to know that name, Hype Williams, because he was doing stuff that people couldn't imagine, and he was pulling it off and became, I think, probably, well, there was some rock directors, superstars, but he was the first hip hop, I think, director that was a superstar. He did Stella's first video. That video we shot in somewhere in Mexico. It was $600,000.
Wow.
We just shot a video 2 days ago in my backyard and on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already edited. And I just got her answer right there. I don't know if you could see it.
I see a lot of hearts look like.
She says, I effing love it, and hearts. That makes
Yeah.
me, I don't need money. I made my money and I was retired for a while, but there's just so much Judge Judy you can watch in the course of the day, you know. And I dug it at first, you know, it was like totally unplugging yourself. And it took me a while, about a year or two, to really come down from it all and realize how much I've done and everything. So when William gave me that phone call, I wasn't looking to get back into work by any means. But when your best friend calls you up and says he needs a favor, you're going to go through any extent to pull off that favor because that's what friends are about. That's what friends are for.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you know, we did this video. Well, let me back up. Stella and I, so we worked together years ago at the beginning of Universal. Unfortunately for her, her record was released somewhere in 2000, 2001. And we all know what happened on September 11th, 2001. And I think between all that and the label not really being sure, because she was so eclectic, she could do hip hop, she could do soul, she could do rock, she could do, I mean, metal. She does it all. So I really think between the 9/11 and everything sort of like freezing for that moment, that's all it takes for an artist to get lost in the sauce. And that's what happened to her. And we hooked up and she paid for two other videos and she was really unhappy with it. So she went to my friend Steve Leeds. And Steve says, well, let me send it to Jeffrey Panzer. He'll know if this is any good or not. And I looked at it. And the first thing is I said, hey, Stella, I got to ask you something. Are you in a wheelchair now or something? How come I don't see anything past like up to here on you? She said, well, I wanted them to, but they had me on a 1 foot by 1 foot cube. And that's how they shot her whole performance. And she's a professional ballet dancer before she became a performer.
Wow.
So she said, do you think you could maybe help me out? And it was sort of like, well, wouldn't that be nice? You know, like the girl that didn't really get a fair shake from a label, a legitimate, the biggest label in the world. Wouldn't that be cool to put a video together for nothing and show them what it looks like in 2025? And that's what we did. And as quickly as we shot it, is I edited it all day today. She's on a plane to Chicago now. She just saw it. And it may take us 2 or 3 days to composite a lot of the shots, but it's a great, slick looking video. I would, if I had to say, you know, I'd say it's about a $200,000 looking video.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I had met her Uh, a couple of days before, she tagged me singing, talking about going to Starbucks, and I kind of laughed. So I went and looked over at her, and I realized she was in the same group that we all are in.
Yeah.
And just before you started um, suggesting I talk to her, we had already started talking. She told me she was on her way to your house. I actually took the video journey with her because she posted getting on the little staircase, the monorail, and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm so excited for you. She was like, yeah, yeah. I even told Ricardo, I said, I met a young lady, man, real bubbly, kind of funny, energetic. She's going to shoot a video at Jeff's house.
Yeah. And
So
you know
I
what?
wanted
Her just enthusiasm, and it's a really positive song that basically is about, isn't it great that, two, that people that are good people, how good people find each other. Like, I knew you, Heston, but I didn't know Ricardo until I popped the video on one day when I was sitting there. And Ricardo was telling the story of the whole intro of your show. And I thought he was so hysterical and funny. I said, this is the dynamic duo right here of independent music, single handedly doing their thing and doing what I hope I'm doing on an individual level. We're taking these young artists and giving them that independent schooling, that it doesn't all start and stop after you finish making your music. That's when the work starts. And
right.
Stella's first post, when I started telling her what she has to do every day, and that's post something personality wise every day, if not twice a day, if not three times a day. I want people to know who you are. And the first post was her going to Starbucks coffee. So the first post she did that I told her to make the night before, you saw. So it must work.
Yeah, yeah.
It must work.
You
So
know,
it's not hard. It just, you have to roll up your sleeves. You got to
and
be hungry. You got to be dedicated. You got to be driven. And if this is what you want to do, well, either you're going to dive in and do it, or you're just going to sink and drown. So you make the decisions. My life's made already. I've already paid my dues. Um, Now it's up to you, and I can educate you, but when it comes down time to do the work, you better be up for it, because it's not going to be easy.
right. You know what drove me when I found out how good my mom's music was, living with them growing up, you take it for granted. I mean, I was a teenager in the 70s. I could stand the music. I was into Parliament and the funk, the funk back then. And my mom then played more disco-ish. I mean, I guess it had a touch of funk in it, but it was more pop disco. That I wouldn't even called it R&B. I guess it's Northern Soul is what I learned. Um, I said, well, that's my mom, and people love her that much. I got to tell my mom and dad's story. My father's been gone now for 31 years, and I'm bringing him back to life. Sharing our stories, what he used to do. It's a story I always tell I grew up with Too Short, you know, and this was in the early DJing days. We used to be crouched down on the floor mixing and scratching and doing all that. My father comes and he bangs on the window because our house is a long driveway and the garage was the studio. So my room was the closest to the garage. He said, "Come on, check this out." So Too Short and I, we go out, and he's got two vinyl pressers that he bought at a pawn shop. So he was working on it, working on it. So he said, "I got it fixed. I got it." And he put it on. He put the reel to reel on and started recording. And it recorded for about a minute, then it just slid on across, you know, and stuff like that. I remember, you know, and when he died, and the record label came and offered to reissue my mom's music, I'm like, okay, you know, but then not really knowing the music business because I mean, like I was a DJ. We were set up to go on tour with Sir Mix-a-Lot, so we were pretty good in the Bay Area. Um, Deciding to promote my mom, I just kept telling. We got lucky enough to be on a couple of news stations, and I got kind of conscientious. I said, "Well, I'm a guy invited me on Facebook, and he said, 'Man, I love your mom's music, blah 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 blah.'" He said, "But you posting too much. People are getting tired of seeing all you doing." And at first, it hurt my feelings, but then you know what? I made a post about it the next day, and so many people commented, "Heston, don't stop. Keep going. We wouldn't know who your mom was without you." And and that and that made me realize this is working. You know, I get up, I do at least one facial post a day, or Ricardo and I will take turns where we'll tell what's going on this week. Like this week today, uh I can't think of the name. Wait a minute, I better think of the name of the radio station. Uh, uh, loud, loud radio. No, lockdown radio. Lockdown radio in London. I just asked them did they need content. I gave them the website. I sent them a video, you know, so they could just look at it. I said I have 100 shows. I can send you the folder. And I said, if you like that show, we have another show called Love Vibes. They listened to the show. And they were like, yeah, 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 yeah. So then I sent them Love Vibes. And then the next day they said, we like them both. Our days availability. I'm like, beggars can't be choosy. If you want to share it, we'll keep sending them. And my thing is, if if you got if three people hear it, that's three more people that heard it than when me playing it by myself. So we'll accept all radio play. I mean, we do have a big radio station that the bulk of our music is being shared on. But then we have other ones, 20,000, 30,000 listeners. Uh, that adds up, you know. So, and then we have YouTube, iHeart. So you are getting, if your music's labeled properly, you are getting monetized spins. And then I met Jeff. That's why I wanted you to meet with Mark Bradley, E2's.
Mark actually did his first post for me today, and I wrote a big shout out to what is it, Electro? the name of his promotion company?
E-Tunes Music.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I gave
Yeah,
him. I
you
gave.
know what? That's a good guy.
I just gave him a
He's my
shout out for being so legit and like honest. I didn't write that, but I said a shout out to a great promotion guy and a great promotion company,
yeah,
because
he's a
those are
good
the
guy.
people like you don't find in this whole indie world. Like they're one in a million, and it was like, to find somebody that was just so wanting just the music for the music's sake. It's like I wanted to hug him. I wanted to give you a hug first and then give him a hug today when I finally saw something on Carla. Actually, was the first to get her all the information that he wanted. And I think Bad Bubbles is coming tomorrow. And now that Stella is back, Stella's going to get it for him. So those are the three key artists now that I'm working with. I sort of call it my part-time job, but it sort of really never ends. It just keeps on.
It's great that they recognize that you're a legend and you still have some gold to give them, because a lot of these young people today, they think, they that's the way y'all did it back then. They don't realize the value of what the foundation that you laid and how that still applies, the foundational, things that you still need to do. And then you've kept yourself updated. You gave her great advice about posting daily, and they want to know more than just a song. They want to know who you are as an artist now. That's you have
You,
the
it's not even
engagement.
an artist, Ricardo, who you are as a person.
Yes, yes.
That whole personal side. And, it's, I'm not I'm far from a legend, dude. It's like, legends of Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson, Sly Stone. Those are legends in the music. I'm just a guy that did it for so many years that through you just doing it enough. If you don't do it well, then maybe you should, go pump gas at a gas station.
They couldn't be the legend without people like you behind the scenes doing it and presenting it in a way that it gives them, you know, up. I don't know. It frames it in a way, like you said, the guy, not to dog on anybody art, but he put. You already saw she's a dancer, and he didn't even utilize that
Yeah,
ability. He put her in a box, and you
I
having the
mean,
eye. Who knows if that video wouldn't have been out that you did presented it in that way, maybe they wouldn't have take off. Maybe they'd be working at a fast food restaurant, that time after
yeah,
that.
but it's just, it's like they use the word legend all the time to describe anything. I'm so uncomfortable with it because I'm just a dude that loves music. That's basically the bottom line to this whole
Well,
conversation.
that's humble of you, but we know that you're a legend, sir. So that's for us to say that you're a legend to us, and many other people. Yeah.
But it's just I just
Here.
call it I call it great timing. Being at the right places at the right times with the right people, and that's what a lot, and plus a little luck has to do with all of this. But you got to be doing it every day. You just can't be sitting at home waiting for that phone to ring or somebody to knock on your door, because it's never going to happen. So you
Mm.
got to go out there and be hungry like a wolf and go and find it.
That name, I just, I'm kind of a history buff too. Panzer, that's not anything. Your great grandfather didn't make the tank, did he?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm
That
just kidding.
Ah, hey, you had me like what?
Did I get you, Ricardo?
you did. I'm like, I don't know how the Jew people feel about that now, but I mean, that's a great name anyway. I always loved that tank because I was, the World War stuff, the Panzer tank. Is it spelled different or is it the same?
Same way.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. I just had to throw that in there. But I know we kept you a long time, Jeff. We really appreciate you.
I
And
love what you guys do, and I can't say it enough that what you do, I envy you. I think people have to know more about you. I tell all my artists, whatever, the first day or the second day, whatever they're doing, they got to follow you guys, follow your shows and everything else. And also, I teach them loyalty to follow each other. So I have Carla following Big Bubble, reposting Big Bubble stuff, and Big Bubble reposting Stella stuff. And so it goes hand in hand. So it's sort of like a little community of people trying to help each other, make their way in this music world.
That's the concept that we had a cooperative marketing. We
Yeah.
trying so hard not to charge artists anything. I said, but your payback, so to speak, is you post when at least on the show that you were on, and that all the other 14 artists, whatever, was on that show. They could post the same as you. So we exponentially grow when we help each other. Like help us, help you. You know.
Yeah. And I mean, just seeing Stella getting off the plane, watching her video, because I'm sure even before she got off the plane, she watched that 3 minute and 40-second video. And to just see, I love it, and those hearts, that's my, that's platinum to me right now. It just it makes it all worthwhile and makes me feel good.
Do you have a website?
Huh? My
Wow.
website or their websites. I build websites for them. I don't need one. I don't want one. I wasn't even a part of social media till I was working with William Lee Golden and the Goldens, and we hired a social media person. I didn't know what a social media person was. So we ended up paying her, I think, 1,000 or something a month. And I find out that she's posting 4 or 5 posts a month. And I said, "Is that all you're doing for this money? That's like $250 a post or something. I don't think anybody's worth that. I said, "Let me see what this is all about." And in about a week or two, I dove into X. And then 2 weeks after, I went into Instagram. But I like X because X is fast, X is quick, X is, like the news, it moves real quick. And Instagram, I just, it's a different platform. And either you're X or Instagram, I have to do both. But I let my artists handle the Instagram parts and I handle X.
Right. I liked X too. Um, I had quite a few followers. That's the another issue, especially on Instagram, where someone will send you something, and it took me a long time to learn. If you don't know the person, don't hit the link. One guy, I I thought I knew him, but he had hacked a so-called friend of mine at the time, and I hit the link, and it redirected me to WhatsApp, and he says, "If you want your page back, pay me $100." And I had over a year history on that page, and I almost did it. Then I got really mad, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. And ever since the pandemic, there's no one in the office. It's all AI generated, where you have a problem, you have to speak into the microphone, and we'll get back to you in a couple of days. And you never, there's nobody at Facebook, nobody at Instagram, nobody at Twitter. It's all automated.
Yep.
So I just had to start over from one. Then someone says, well, get the double protection. So I did that. And they didn't tell you, if you do double protection and your first device goes out, you lose everything. So now I'm started over on Twitter with one. And luckily I have quite a few friends that help me out. I got I had like over 6,000 followers, and but then I have about 500 supporters, and I found out my supporters range is bigger than my followers because on Twitter you could do a post, tag a bunch of people, they all retweet it. That's what eTunes does. He does a shared post
They have very loyal followers on X.
on X. They are. They
Very,
are.
very loyal. I have this army of people that I'm so
Yeah.
blessed to have that I've met over the last 3 years through this social media thing. That without them, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now because they take the time to follow, repost, and they embrace all the artists that I embrace and I work with. So all of a sudden, it's like a built in army of a core group of people that will make sure that these people get heard. And I think just that alone is one step closer to their dream than never being heard by anybody.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, anytime you have some new music, just send it to Hess, and we're definitely. I'm looking forward to see the video and hearing the song
But
myself.
I
the
got Stella's new song, and of course we got Carla. We played that before, so
Carla has a new song though. I'm not sure if we know the title yet, but we co-wrote and co-produced the song. And until the very like last minute, I'm always playing with lyrics and stuff till I gotta let it go and move on to something else. So that's why
yeah.
I'm not sure what we're calling it today. Probably I'll know tomorrow morning when she gets up. But yeah, Bad Bubble is great. He's got this trilogy CD set, and then it's going to be time to reapproach his whole project. And I said, it'd be cool. Not if you change your sound because your sound is you. But what about adding some guitars to the synthesizer deal and like making your sound a little bit bigger and more? Let's make it bigger and more. You can always just go bigger and see where it gets to you, but doing the same, which he doesn't do because every song sounds different. But I like to challenge and to push as hard as I can them to use their creativity in a positive way.
Well, he could send it to me for guitars if he want. I'll
All
lace
right.
it. If he loves it, then use it. If he don't, hey, no, no.
That's
Hey,
awesome to
if
hear.
I would have him take Ricardo up on that offer, he's a hell of a guitarist.
No,
You know,
you know what? I dig him because he's so well spoken. He listens really well. He asks really great questions in his interviews I've seen. And both of you make a great team. And Heston, I love your mother. I think
thank
Carrie is like, she's a ball of dynamo, man. She really is.
you know she's loved everywhere she goes. It's amazing. I teased her the other day. I say, Mom, when did I get that little brother? You know, Mama Carrie, Auntie, Mama Cleveland. Oh my God, everybody loves her.
You can't
I'm
help
glad
you
she
can't help but to love her because here's a woman. I don't care how age is just a number. She's still living her dream. And
yeah,
I love seeing that. I love seeing her on stage. I love seeing her perform. She's lost in that whole world she's into, and that's all that matters. And you see it in her face, you see it in her eyes, you see it in her smile, and I appreciate that.
thank you, thank you. You know that really means a lot, and I have to thank my co-host Ricardo because he took the time out and invented her with the new music. He took four of the songs and remixed them. beautiful music. So with the help, we do have like an army around us as well. That they lift my
No,
mom up.
no one person can do it by themselves.
No, and we tell them that, it's a like a bartering system here. We'll play your music. You support us. If you think we need anything, you let us know. If you need anything from us, let us know. You know, and this is what we're going to do for you. I'm in the group. That group you got. I'm gonna get one song from everybody in that group, and we're going to play on our next show. Carla's new song, Stella's new song. It'll be your show.
Wow.
But we'll do that.
I would
Yeah,
love
let's play some old, let's play some new, let's play people you associate, your playlist.
uh,
Yeah.
my
Matter
playlist goes from the Grateful Dead to Lil Wayne.
no. See, Ricardo overstepped. We're talking about the
Independent.
indie artists in the group. In the group I'm in, let's start off with that.
Okay. That's
That'll
beautiful.
be fun.
I love that idea. And whatever I can do to help you both out with any of your shows or anything else, I'm on board.
We appreciate you, man.
All
Now I'm
right.
still looking for that interview with Raphael.
All right. I just need you. Like, I haven't even come down from finishing the video because I just finished it 45 minutes before our show started. So I just got myself some Gatorade and ice, and I said, "Here we go." And I hadn't even come down from finishing that video, starting it this morning and finishing it this afternoon. And it's all love, it's stuff that I love to do. So instead of getting into trouble, I do, my craft, and it's my playtime.
Right. Well, you get that together for us. When you ready, you let us know. We do a new show every Monday. Every Monday is a new show. We completed Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and it goes to the radio stations, and the first one plays.
How about we start once a month? Let me start slow
Okay.
because I'm not that regimented or anything. When work comes up, I do it, but when there's no work, I'm a family guy too, and that's real important for me, that balance and everything else in life, especially now as I've gotten older. I realize how much the family is so important to me, and I don't
Yeah.
want to commit to something that I can't come through. So I'd rather start off slow, see how the three go. The three artists, I'll get them lined up for the same time, the same place, and everything, and let you know a week in advance or something that I'm ready to go. And
Okay.
we'll do it. We'll do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what? We're gonna let you go, Jeff. It's been a pleasure, my friend. It's
Eston, I'm so happy to finally see you in person. And Ricardo, man, you're a class act.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Truly
We
are.
appreciate you, man. We appreciate you taking the time out to meet with us. It's an honor and our pleasure, and we look forward to the future.
Well, I just hope I wasn't boring. That's all.
No, it's very interesting. God, I didn't know. I mean, he gave me some highlights of what was going on, but I'm like, wow, wow. I just kept saying, wow. I had to, because the way this Zoom is set up, it goes by when you talk. That's when the camera switches, and I
Right.
can't get that thing to turn off. So I was like, I gotta retain myself from not saying wow so much because it keeps switching. Yeah.
It's been a great trip, but I
Yeah,
thank you both. And let me go eat something before I drop.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Guys,
you. Appreciate love you, as Rankish crew would say. Respect.
right back at you both.
All right. Hey,
Have a great night.
out to you in a couple of days.
Okay.